turned it off yet though.
Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to one part of the spring breakout series by Don't Shoot Portland. My name is Tiff Harker, and I'm the co-director at Holding Contemporary, an experimental gallery space in Portland, Oregon that presents exhibitions and programs by visual artists across disciplines. And through our curatorial vision and alternative community-driven business model, we seek to challenge the economic and social privilege of the art world. Iris Williamson and I are co-curators of the programmatic series in 2021 and 2022 through the Center for Art Research at University of Oregon, called Habits of Denial. It is a series that centers around the theme of access, that features research, exhibitions, and public programs with collaborating artists that investigate specific issues within larger systems of power and their embedded exclusionary impacts. So today, we are in conversation with our current exhibition artist, Teressa Raiford, who is founder of Don't Shoot Portland, an arts and education nonprofit that promotes social justice and civic participation to create social change. In addition to serving on the board of Don't Shoot Portland, Teressa is an integral presence in the city through her organizing and philanthropy. So welcome, Teressa.
Thank you for that introduction, Tiffany.
Yeah, thanks for, I'm excited to be in conversation and hear more about some of the things that the folks joining us might not know about the exhibition that's at Holding Contemporary right now, called Feeling Documents. I think we were going to start by doing a virtual kind of walkthrough and then get into more questions with you about what your ideas were, how you created the exhibit, and some questions that have been coming up throughout the month and a half that we've presented this exhibition. So maybe Iris, you could start the video so that people can feel as if they're experiencing the exhibition.
Something is happening. The on the YouTube, it's only showing Avery. Oh, never mind.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Iris, for playing the video. I think maybe we can even talk through what elements are in the exhibition with Teressa. And Iris, if you could show visuals alongside of that, we could maybe pause on all the different parts as we go through it. If that sounds good to you, Teressa, if that sounds like a good way to.
Oh, no, absolutely. I know the video was just probably lagging because of Wi-Fi or internet.
Right.
So I just didn't want to, have to go through that if y'all didn't.
Yeah, it did. It has a, for the audience to know, there's the video is, I think, both on Don't Shoot's website and Holding Contemporaries, and there's it's scored with audio, and it's a nice way to experience it, but of course it doesn't compare to being in the space. And that was something I wanted to talk with Teressa about, or have Teressa talk more about, considering, after Iris and I proposed the idea of involving you in this series about access, and the title Habits of Denial, what then led you to the phrase of feeling documents, and how you organized it in your head, or maybe like how you visualized it, and then what the different components are on the wall. Like maybe that's a good place to start.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure that that our ASL are spotlighted, and it's seeming like they aren't. So I was going to say maybe we won't use the pictures, and
Okay.
we'll go through it so that we can have everybody on the screen.
Okay.
Okay, good deal. That's probably the easiest way to do this, to make sure that everyone is included in this process.
Yeah.
And you were just asking, like, why did we decide to use filling documents for the CFAR?
Right. Yeah. If you started with knowing that maybe that was the title, or you started with knowing that you wanted to include the visuals of faces, or the lyrics component, or the archival components. All three of it work so well together, like they're all talking to each other.
Mhm.
And so it's just interesting, I think, to hear what you thought of first, or me being part of the exhibition, and seeing how you work and think through things is interesting. But I thought it might be something that the audience would want to hear, like were you able to visualize it? Because from my perspective, it seems like you visualized it right away and it happened exactly as you planned it. And that's kind of incredible to me, that it wasn't adapted too much. It was, you came up with the concept of the feeling documents, and it's it's just a really moving space to be in for anyone that has already seen it and is listening today, or those of you that haven't had a chance to come by. The last day is on Sunday, but just wanted to hear anything that you wanted to share, Teressa, about like how you came up with it all.
Absolutely. Well, you're right. I did have it in my head with the colors and everything. And what a lot of people don't know is I had been arrested in August of 2015. And when I was on trial, sitting next to my attorney, and even before we even went to trial, I grabbed this little journal and I wrote down that I wanted to do like a series of art installations, and they were all about walls. And this was, some of that thought process came before, Donald Trump was president. But I wanted to put information on walls because nobody was paying attention to what we were saying. Like we were saying, stop killing us. And they were like beating us up or tear gassing or, running us over with cars or whatever. And I thought, well, if I just had these walls where I could put information or put the information with art, maybe people wouldn't want to hurt us or wouldn't feel alarmed. Maybe they would feel like it's something they need to pay attention to. And so For this installation, I didn't know what the name of it was going to be or what all of the elements were going to be, but with the music that we used, and with like the imaging of Tupac's lyrics with the redactions, I've always gone back to the song Changes. And so when I'm listening to that song and I'm thinking about, the inequities that exist and the priorities of our elected leaders to address these inequities and the fact that they don't, I wanted to kind of show evidence of why they don't see us as, full Americans or full humans for that fact, through this installation. And so when I put the racist faces up there, obviously that was a cue from Tupac. He was like, all I see is racist faces. And so I was like, wow, I see so many racist faces, but how do I connect those racist faces with these bad deed policies or these mandates or these directives that cause me harm? And so putting the documents across from the racist faces is to add that leveling. It's to give people like, oh, she's not just being vindictive and showing these racist people on the wall. There is information that is connected to them upholding white supremacy and having the values of white supremacy, which, contain values of violence against people like us. And so having that information in there is just adding the evidence. So I can say that these are racist people or they're upholding white supremacy, but then the documents are the actual evidence of that information. And the reason that I wanted to add feeling documents to it is because one of the things that I realized about art is it makes you feel something. It makes people want to, feel a certain way. They might not go into it wanting to like it or not like it, but being in front of art, you kind of connect to your feelings of what you're seeing or what you're connected to, whether it's music or dance or illustrations or, paintings. There's some type of feeling connection. And so I wanted people to be connected to these documents. I wanted them to feel the documents so that they could have some kind of understanding or empathy in the way that we feel as people that are vulnerable to state sanctioned violence. And so it kind of, it's there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's three of us who are in the space with visitors, and I think we all have a different, I know we all have a different approach to like talking about these things and giving an introduction of what this is, but just touching on what you're saying about feeling, and people ask why the title, that's a question. What does feeling documents mean? And all we do all day is like witness people feeling something in the space, so it's almost like predicting something. I mean, there's people that have questions and it's not just immediate feeling, but the part that makes me, I don't know, that makes it feel like it's can change something is when groups come in together and they're having really substantive conversations for a whole hour, like being in this space. And it's a small gallery, but it's a significant thing that people take all the time to be in here. And it's not just learning about something on a computer, it's actually providing a space to do it. And there's so much to hear and look at. I don't know. I'm just saying this is my observations, and there's like a whole range. It's not just me who's here. There's all the people that are witnessing it happen. But maybe you can talk about what sparked you to make that wall of faces. So when you walk into the gallery, it's a whole collage of faces on the left-hand side that also includes blank like outlines of bodies. And maybe you could talk about that, designing that.
Absolutely. Well, the faces obviously show like from the early 1600s, 1700s, all the way till right now, today. It shows images of people that have caused violence, whether they were police officers or health administrators or politicians or educators or, social change makers of the time, which we've seen lots of images of the Klan in there. But those faces have to, they're there to stand. But me as a community organizer, I started using art to kind of make it a easier way for me to protest. So the reason that there's so many different levels to this information, including like videos or, music or sound, is because I tried to bring the protest into the space without the police and the violence that happens to the protesters. It was like, what if someone stopped to listen to what everyone is saying when they show up on the front line? What if they stopped to listen? And what would that listening look like? It's like all this noise. We did the Stop Killing Us protest back in 2020, and it had images of protesters from throughout the years that have shown up here in Portland. And I wanted to be able to show who their faces were, because in the media, a lot of times they're like activists or anti-fascists, or, they're always using these like dehumanizing terms that don't really conclude that we're out there for human rights and dignity. And so in these spaces, I get that kind of access. I get to actually create the human intersect for people that would be kind of, aggressive towards us. And I think that even in this one, with the faces of all those people, like when people come in, obviously they see like Margaret Sanger and they're like, whoa, Margaret's not a, and I'm like, what? She's not a what? She didn't do eugenics. She didn't call us feeble or, not necessary people. Like, I have to remind people that some of their heroes might be people that would not see me in this world as a person. And then those blank faces, we're always in our protests talking about the complicity of silence and the fact that it is violent to not speak up or to not heal to the call to action. And so with those faces being blank, I took away that all the racist faces are just white people. They might not be white people that uphold white supremacy, but their silence makes them complicit. And so while seeing those blank faces, you can actually see yourself. And I wouldn't know if you're a complicit person or not, but I think that if you come into that space and you think about the determination of a human rights effort, and if you think of your efforts or your actions or your support or non-support, then you can see yourself in that blank space. I wanted to use mirrors, but I think that would have been a lot for what we were trying to do. But I think the blank faces kind of help us lead that information to the viewer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people get that on their own. There was I don't know if I told you about the art class that came in here that was about 15 people. And the whole exercise of the art class is to not read anything about the exhibit, not to know anything ahead of time, and they have to talk through it. And it was so interesting hearing like everyone touch on every bit of your decisions about it, like why the color palette, why the blank figures, why are they in direct opposition of each other or in a direct like facing each other. Yeah, like the whole gamut of like talking through and getting a lot of it wrong, but many of them getting it right because they are truly observing. And like I was saying about being in the space. Yeah, I mean, I think of the past installations of Don't Shoot in this space and how every one of them had such a particular character and a time, like the time informed it so much as well. And I was just talking to Mishana about this, about what the feeling is, like the feeling and the response from people. And I feel like this one is the most contemplation, like the first one with the stolen angels, it was like a memorial and recognition of something. And then the next was the Stop Killing Us. And like, despite the title, it was like, it felt like the most like participation from the community and like all these things. It was during the time after the murder of George Floyd, and a lot more people were participating at that time. Mm-hmm. To then the Liberated Archives with the writing on the wall, like literal wallpapering of signatures, to keeping people out of keeping Black communities out of the Albina neighborhood in Portland to this. And I'm already talking too much and you should be talking, but it's so different, like the feeling of each one. And it feels like you're in a different space. And of course we are at a different moment right now of time and history, but yeah, maybe I can get your thoughts, or people would probably like to hear your thoughts more about the like evolution of your installations here or in other spaces, if not here. Just
I mean, for me, because we've done so many art installations, like I believe like all of our protests, including the Reclaim MLK, is an art installation. It's just a moving, it's a moving installation. It's a performance art. When we were taking over the Portland Art Museum and we had a whole band, performing there, and we, did women information, and there was a fashion show, and there was crunk dancers, and there were art that was happening right there where we were creating our 60-foot long Black Lives Matter banner. Things like that, all of those are like, let's take over this space. I used to go to the Justice Center and stand on the steps with a bullhorn and protest, about the injustice that was happening. And I would do that, right around the time of Dr. King's assassination. And, I would just call it a soapbox, but that was all public art, if you ask me. And our art, the thing about it, the way that it evolves is, we have history. We have a lifetime of information to share, but we just created this new foundation of sharing it. And so there has been a lot of talk about like social justice and art, but I really believe that the way that we make our art is for social justice. It's literally social justice art. It's educational programming for us. We're hoping, and I'm seeing through each exhibit, over the years, whether it's been on the front lines where we're passing out federal documents to people, or audits that we're demanding in testimony, wherever we make art and wherever we show up for social change in this social movement, there's always an artistic and an educational platform that is being revealed to people. And it's always necessary to keep it bold and effective, or let's say intentional. We got to be bold and intentional because we're in a crisis, and so as that crisis continues, we move the art that way. Like with Stolen Angels, those were all people from Portland and throughout Oregon that had been killed by law enforcement or in gun violence. And we added documents like the news articles, we added intimate pieces from their families that were given to us for that installation, so we could have layers of who they were as people. Because using the hashtag as a person that really cares about these people, I don't want to dehumanize them at all. And so in doing these artistic installations, we're able to show people how much we care and value those lives that have been lost. The Liberated Archives portion of this, and many of them that we do, that's to show how over time nothing has changed. That's why it was so important for us to have the lyrics from Tupac in this one, because it's literally to say, even if we don't ever do another installation, or if we continue to do installations based on these records, these documents, these people and their manners and the people that they are, there hasn't been any change. We can continue to be assaulted on the front line, or we can, be loud using art, but it doesn't seem to make a difference in this world. And so for me, it's important to provide evidence of who we are as people, and not just the evidence that they provide through media.
Right. Well, speaking of the evidence and like the writing on the wall on the right hand side when you come in, like the archival documents and the way that those are organized and like laid out all over the wall, it's this effect of, it is wheat. They are wheat pasted on the wall, and they look like they're dimensional. They're coming off and they're stuck together. And maybe you could talk a little more about that, your idea about that.
Well, there's we know we've all seen these Karen videos, and we've seen Kyle Rittenhouse cry on trial. We've seen other officers like the one who killed Dante Wright cry on trial. We saw the person that killed Botham Jean on trial crying. And we know that white tears in this country lead to violence against people, again, like me. And so what I wanted to do with the documents is I wanted to fill them with white tears and stick them to the wall so that they could be held up so that people can see what those tears are really full of, what information is behind those tears, that this isn't something brand new that just happened in our lifetime. And so we used the wheat paste, and I call it the wheat paste white tears. I was like, yeah, we're going to use the white tears on the blue paper to kind of hold it to the wall so that people can see it. And it's like, let's see through those white tears. If I use them to stick these documents up on the wall, then people will have to look at those documents before they can see that tear. They know that the tears are there because the paper is being held together with it and it's sticking to the wall. But there's actual violence in those tears. There's actual intention to circumvent my actual access to life and our children's lives. And so we needed to make it plain, like, Malcolm X would say, make it plain. And so I believe that using that kind of process to kind of eliminate the art or illuminate it should work.
Right. Yes. I mean, it feels like emotionally and physically overwhelming, even though that this one is maybe the most like, you and I talked a little bit about like it being, what's the word? Just, it's very pretty, like it's like seductively pretty, even though it's so horrible. Like the content is so hard, but when you see it from afar, it's like this kind of beautiful exhibit. And so there's a disconnect there, but it also, compared to the other exhibitions that you've done, it's like very straightforward, and it seems organized and everything, but then it also feels the most overwhelming. Like the walls feel taller than they ever did before. Like it just feels like you're small in the space. And I don't know if there's a question in there, but it was like, it's something that other people comment about too, even that have been here a lot, that it feels like they're being overwhelmed by it, and not a way that they can't handle it, but it's just, yeah, that's,
I just want to say, I think that that's because people have gotten used to Black trauma and the Black struggle, and they don't see us as people. And so I wanted them to see themselves as people. And I think it's jarring. Like in some of the responses, I've heard people say that it's even elegant, like, oh, wow, this elegant, installation. And I'm like, wow, that's how people feel about themselves though. They feel like, like I'm better than these people. And so that's why I can carry myself this way. I'm better than these people. That's why my values reflect who I am. And we saw that in the Liberated Archives installation we did in August, when you would look at the reasoning behind people not wanting to allow Black people to live in Northeast Portland. It was literally because they felt that their value would depreciate just having us in the space. And so I wanted, again, to kind of show that construct in the real world in this installation. And obviously we all uphold white supremacy in some way against everyone else. It's like, even when people started using the BIPOC or POC, they were literally saying like, white is the default and you guys are the others. And I'm like, wow, like now we're all Negroes, it's just incredible. So I just wanted to show like how valuable white people see themselves in that space, so that while they're there, hopefully they can feel some kind of like shame, like, wow, this is, you can't say you didn't know, because a lot of those people on the wall, you probably do know, and your family has probably voted for them, or you probably have, some kind of connections, whether it's the priority of the privilege that they fought to assert for you, or the ability to be economically secure forever, whatever that value is. I wanted it to be reflected in that space. I wouldn't, throw mud on the walls and say, hey, this is white supremacy. I have to show what white supremacy looks like for white people and for the rest of us to have to witness. So
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so aesthetically ordered, like it's so ordered, and the colors are kind of inviting, but then when you're looking at when you're looking at it and being engaged with it, it's something different. And then the back area has documents that are on loan from, I think is it the Multnomah County Archive?
Multnomah County Archives.
Yeah. And can you talk about one or a couple of those, what's the content in those?
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to bring those in because not only are they legal documents from, court cases or pictures from people being booked into jail, but the discrepancies, I wanted to show, like, they keep, in this world, like in one of the documents, it shows how we were criminalizing children. And most of these children were like orphan children or poor children or children of color or children with disabilities. But they lived and survived on a poor farm that were, here in Oregon, where they might not have been treated really well, but they had freedom of space and movement. And they had this farm where they could make money and have things to kind of trade within the city to receive the things that they needed in order to live there. And when I think Social Security came into play in the 30s and 40s, when everyone started institutionalizing this support system, what ended up happening is those same people became institutionalized through prison systems, right? We started, realizing like, oh, some people could be hospitalized and they might not get the best hospital treatment, but their families no longer had to care for them or take care of them. And that could go across color lines. In the jail system, I wanted to show those booking photos because overwhelmingly, if you look through those photos, there are white people and immigrants, and then there's a couple of pictures of Black people and brown people. But in the way that they write things in policy and the determination that we are, criminal and we're doing such a bad thing, if you look at the occupations of the people that they were arresting, grand larceny, all these different things, it's not what they said. It wasn't, rape and murder and, they're coming over here to, take our jobs. There were actually people that were getting arrested for trying to cash their checks because it was illegal for them to even be in the city after a certain time, or, all these different things that are characteristic of bias and discrimination. It wasn't really that we had this inherent value of being criminals. It was just punitive, and it was a political punitive measure that was used to deal with us. But if you look through those pictures again, there's not an overwhelmingly Black and brown community within those in those images, but overwhelmingly we're the ones who are treated with the most amount of violence. And it's hard to resurrect from that harm once it's done, generation after generation after generation. But the fact that right now we're living in a time where mass incarceration shows you that, Black people and people of color are overrepresented in our criminal justice system and our children, juvenile justice systems. It seems as if to me that we've gone harder, we've gotten meaner, we've gotten more desperate to stop people from being able to move around in spaces without punitive damages being applied to them. And that's always been intentional. But I wanted to show that because obviously people believed that, after emancipation, that the Black people were gonna come and rob them and take things from them. But as you see on that wall, after emancipation, Black people went and built towns and communities, and they were bombed and destroyed. And so I just wanted to show like what's fair. This is what's on the record. We weren't overly sadistic and murderous,
Right. I mean, I didn't think of it until you were talking about the orderliness and kind of like the language, like the visual language of white supremacy, and seeing it in those books. Like I didn't think of it that way, but how orderly it is, how nice the handwriting is, calling kids delinquent over and over again. Like the book is like this thick.
Yeah.
It's like criminalizing children so easily. And I think about who still lives here and like how that affected, generationally. But anyway, just how.
And the thing is, the fact that that's Multnomah County, that health jail, I mean, the sheriff's office is the one that puts you behind bars and provides services for you when you're locked up through the corrections system. The school system, all these different agencies started connecting to kind of identify who the criminals were going to be. And that's what I see as community policing now, is not helping us. There's not an investment in the lives of these children that they're calling delinquents. There's only cages.
Thank you for talking about all the components. It's yeah, it's just interesting just to see how they all connect, and the discovery, I guess, in ways that people are visiting and going through all of these things. Yeah, because it's a lot, especially for the two of my colleagues that are here doing it too. It's I think about all the labor that you do all the time through your organization, and in order to just get messages across, like yeah, emotional labor, physical labor, safety, and all of those things. But yeah, that's maybe that's for a whole nother conversation. But just the fact that what happened at Normandale Park, and us considering safety more, it's a different yeah, it's a different conversation, and what a safe space looks like, you know. And I think about the don't shoot needing, you know, your own space and advocating for that. Anyway, again, like, not sure there's a question in there, but I'm just thinking it's easy to start to kind of think through it in conversation with you. But I know that the audience probably has questions too, and if you want to move on to that, or if there's more.
Well, I wanted to add that, I mean, in addition, because I wanted to show like how Black people have been able to function through all of this white supremacist violence that's happened generation to generation. And I wanted to say, like, in the part, you know, where you were just asking me, you were like, safety is a concern, and you know how to keep yourself healthy. The color scheme, like the colors that we use, the orange color, which is a buttery yam color. When I was presented with the color palettes, I already knew which colors I wanted, but I, you know, obviously was reminded that there's like 300 different oranges and 300 different greens and all that. So I went towards the colors that were connected to food, because one of the things that has kept me sound and, you know, secure throughout my whole life was the fact that in our family, you know, we have grandmas or we have relatives that will be able to cook food for us, that will take care of us, that will nurture us, that will, you know, make us feel better when we're hurting. And so I wanted to add those different components to this installation, so that as people are seeing it, that there's like a calming, you know, a calmness that comes through what food does for some people, the gathering, the love that is centered around, you know, family holidays when people show up together, you know, family service when someone is taken from us. There's always this food or these flowers or something that's there to kind of build love and support. And so we have the buttery yam with like the blue paper, and the blue paper is like representative of FBI documents. They're usually blue, you know, in color. And I remember growing up seeing color images like that, and knowing that that's like the color of the law. This is a document. This is important. This is, you know, this is law. This is what we're going to do. This is our challenge. So having that on top of the food, and again, saying that centering of the legal system or the law, or what is a foundational value of this country, is more important than our safety and our love and our caring and nourishment. And then also with like the classic bow, the color that I pulled for the olive, for the, you know, the Tupac words, I was thinking olive, right? For olive branch, being able to reach and share and commit to supporting someone. And that's why I wanted to make sure that his words were on that color, because obviously when we're sharing our art, we're doing it from the heart. We're literally sharing it so that someone can feel something. And I wanted to offer that as an olive branch. And Obviously, the tangerine letters, that's another fruit element. And again, a preference of mine, because I think that those elements need to be together in order to sustain our hope, and so moving forward, however you want to go. But I just wanted to add that in there for context.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. That's something that I didn't ask and I just started to realize, but that's so beautiful. The nurturing and olive branch and connection to food. In the past, the back area here was kind of like a respite in a way, or like a way to share food too, like friends and family kind of thing in the back area, or sometimes in the front before COVID. But anyway, well, should we get to any questions? I don't know if there's any in the chat right now, or
Did we have questions from like the DOSs, the people that have been seeing people? Because I know a lot of people were, I check in with y'all all the time. So I wanted to kind of connect with those questions.
Yeah, there is a document here. Let me get to it. There are so many questions or comments, but let me see ones that we haven't addressed. A lot of people sharing their experiences. These are for the audience to know. I'm in the back area of the gallery right now, and there's active like tours happening. So if anyone could hear that in the background, but a lot of it, these are all compiled comments and questions from the visitors that have been through the exhibit. And like I said, there's a lot. There's things about the blank portraits and color representation. Let's see, how did you research the topics? Arrangement of documents. And again, there's people sharing their experiences about a Japanese couple that whose family history was in internment camps. There's let's see, I guess maybe if you wanted to talk about the docent, a lot of people were asking, if it was like a museum exhibit, that there was a docent there to like walk you through. If you had anything to say about that part of it, that element.
Well, after Don't Shoot Portland started, going through the museum and calling them out for having stolen art, just basically going on different excursions through that space to utilize the resources they had there. Like when they had the Color Lines exhibit, we were, utilizing it for arts program for our children. When they had Hank Willis Thomas, we were there in residency, and that's when we first did our liberated archives in a space outside of a library. Just having the docent there, having someone there with the installation is important to us, because again, our installations are our protest. That's our way to protest. That's social justice art. And so there needs to be an explanation for people, because we want you to leave there with a call to action. We want you to, it's cool that you're coming in there to look at the art, but obviously we are not selling that art. Sometimes it might be available for sale. We're not doing that. We literally want you to understand what's going on in the world for us, and we want you to do something about it in your own space and time. Everybody that comes through there, we're not expecting them to show up at protests or to sign up for our programming or any of that. But we're doing this work with the hope that it will change their minds if they haven't done anything to move this world forward in regards to social and racial policies and interests. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that answers one of the other questions, which was a big one for a lot of people, and talking about how do we not feel hopeless? What can we do? What is the end goal? What are our action steps? There's a lot of that.
Well, because of the art installation showing like health and education and politics and policing and all these different elements based on the people that are on the wall. And also those documents, the call to action is to do something legally, like to dismantle white supremacy, give the land back to, the indigenous people who it was stolen from, relieve yourself from, racialized privilege. We want people to do what they know is doable for them. Right now, I remember since 2020, so many organizations and companies made these pledges to kind of, dismantle white supremacy within their organizations. And I haven't seen a lot of that happening, and we're only at 2022. But I think that we're holding this space as a reminder that that needs to be done. And it's also a reminder that it can be in any aspect of life. They don't, if you're an educator, maybe you can create educational programming or provide information in books and programs that address racism, not to just say that we're gonna, oh, we're all peace and love and we're gonna move forward. Moving forward without confronting and being accountable to what's happening now is not a necessity. Dismantling white supremacy right now is a necessity. We can't move forward unless we work to dismantle it. And I believe that the next generation, the children behind all of us, are going to be, these issues are going to be in front of them. And I want the people that are here now to start making a way and guiding that process so that they can be successful in doing what is necessary for them to all live in a better world. Whether it's registering to vote, whether it's, you might be a landlord and you see these housing discrimination documents, and you might want to start thinking about how you're creating, your building or developing, or even your process of being a landlord or a renter or a seller, like there's something consciously that we can all do. I know a lot of people, when they first started calling me an activist, I didn't understand what they meant, but they started putting me into this space where it was like, oh yeah, she's an anti-police activist. And I was like, oh, my nephew wasn't killed by the police. He was killed in gun violence. And then I would go to the school board and they'd be like, why is Don't Shoot Portland at the school board? Because our children are being shot, or they might be prone to violence, or anything might happen because of what's happening in this institution. What we do know is that it is a school to prison pipeline. So we want to break that pipeline. Like, in every space, it's not just about shooting or violence. I think that being a hungry child is violent, and if there's someone that would displace that child rather than connect with that family to help support them, I think that that's violent. And I'm hoping that by showing these documents in these spaces, that we change our faces from people that would uphold white supremacy and only have that mandate, and start becoming people that nourish one another and take care of each other and really love humanity for social change. Like, we have to do better, but we have to be presented with the evidence. And I believe that, that information is there, and then obviously we're doing this artist talk. So if there wasn't enough clarity in that space, maybe they can get it here, but you have to do something in your own life. And I think every day we're connected with some type of white supremacist violence, whether we like it or not, whether we're looking for it or not.
Thank you for that answer. I mean, one of the questions that I'm looking at right now is, why aren't there more contemporary documents to go with contemporary portraits and artists?
There were contemporary documents. The people that killed Ahmaud Arbery were on that installation. Ted Wheeler is our current mayor. He's on that installation. A couple of different politicians and police officers that are in that installation are currently, living their best lives after murdering people and being allowed to, using state-sanctioned violence. And the documents that are on the wall, the reason that those documents are like, from different time periods, again, is showing no changes. I could show documents from things that are happening now, but I chose to show the people that are hindering us instead of using those documents. The Ruthless Records is underneath, there's some stuff about Eazy-E, and when he died, there were, documents and music that he owned that was in the trunk of the car. that he owned or that he was leasing. And we put that document behind other documents because we want people to not only see the documents that are on the wall, but we want them to research all of the documents. And so we also made not only the booklet that's there, but there's a link through that QR code that should take people to the documents and all the images so that they can kind of see clearly that, oh, even though this is something that happened in the 60s or the 40s, redlining still exists. All these, destroyed communities. Well, right now there are people that are the ancestors of those children, of the people that were harmed. Their children now are redeveloping those communities. And so I wanted people to do their research so that they can realize that, like Tulsa, right now we're celebrating building Black Wall Streets, and not only in Tulsa, but in Atlanta and all these different places across the country. Black businesses are coming back. People, quit their jobs en masse in 2021. And I'm hoping that they continue doing that, because now we get to exploit our own labor through our own means, and we can make sure that those earnings and those values are not, detracted or deflated by white supremacist values. So
Thank you. I was just yeah. There are more recent documents certainly included in the exhibition. There's a booklet, and then I think there's links to them on the websites as well. I was thinking the Supreme Court confirmation, like you don't have to look beyond that to see what the contemporary stuff is. But there's 5 minutes left, and I think there's a couple questions in the chat about, let's see, there's one that is from Johnny saying, how can someone like me who wants to become a community activist and organizer join or volunteer for a group like Don't Shoot PDX? And then when will there be another exhibition in Portland? And if you do choose to do another exhibition in Portland, what other topic would it cover?
Well, they can go to our website, don'tshootpdx.org, and hopefully, I think our link for signing up to volunteer is live. We had gotten almost upwards of 700 people signed up to volunteer, so we had to shut our links down for a little while, but we're kind of working through our social outreach committee to kind of evaluate how to utilize all those volunteers. What we've been doing in the last year is just supporting other groups that are on the ground, because when people showed up for 2020, my whole thought was like, how do we keep them active? How do we make sure that they continue to do this work in community? And it can't just be when Don't Shoot Portland wants to do something, people show up. We want to help support other organizations that are doing that work, and we want to inspire them to continue doing the work. So we've been kind of connecting resources and volunteers to different organizations so that they can build sustainability in their outreach. So if you sign up, we'll be all right with that. But if you're doing some work in your own communities, we will definitely support that. We even have like critical response vehicles that people can use and that have been used for different things that are happening in the community. So everything from evictions to kind of cleaning out refrigerators that are in communities to help get people food, donating to medics so that they can provide support to people that protest, paying for lawsuits so that protesters' rights to connect to community and to communicate these issues is not harmed or stopped or stifled because of police violence. So we're still doing a lot of that work, but we really would like to see people start showing up in their own capacities so that we can support that. And we know that that gives us hope.
Thank you. The last question I see is from Mark, who's saying archivist or curator, or just dismantling of labels.
I would say, to me, labels don't matter, but I believe that I've always curated. When I was a young kid, I walked around with a journal writing down ideas and thoughts and stuff, and then I would make those things happen. And a lot of the work that we're doing right now, 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago, when my nephew was murdered, I remember documenting everything that we needed to do in order to address his death, everything that was possible for me to do without the support of our state things that I just thought we needed to do as people. And that's the work that we're doing right now. And as I continue to age, I'm going to continue to share my ideas in ways that they could be useful, because I don't want to be the one out there doing this stuff anymore. Burnout is real. PTSD is real. The violence of, well, we're all witnessing what's happening to this in this confirmation. And so you can imagine, if you don't have all these degrees and you haven't been a judge and a clerk and all these Ivy League opportunities, how people like myself are treated when we say Black Lives Matter or stop killing us. We really have to do a lot more to protect Black women. They're such a treasure in this world, but we don't get treated like that. And so I'm done with it, you know, as much as I can be. But I will continue to use my thoughts and ideas and my work to kind of illuminate the issues that I know other people are going to understand and move forward. And I know that there are going to be barriers for them. So I present my art as an olive branch for them as well.
Thank you so much for your olive branch and all the work that you do. We're right at 3 o'clock. If there's any other parting things that you'd like to say, Teressa.
I know. I'm just thankful that y'all hosted us in this space again. To me, it's a very beautiful space, and it's just enough space for me to be able to conduct these type of visuals for our community. And I hope people that haven't gotten a chance to see it are signed up to check it out, or they can find the link to the video on this YouTube channel so that they can do the walkthrough. Thank you so much, Holding Contemporary and our ASL. Selena and Avery, thank y'all for being here today, and everybody that tuned in today, and everyone that will be watching the recorded program. Black Power.